Well, marvelous Mac Morey's mission with with the apparent alliteration from the old line broadcaster and former member of Congress, Mac Morey today, his mission that he claims he can accept comes in hour 3. And what we are going to do in hour 3, since Friday in this biz, in this genre, in this format of radio, Fridays are usually reserved for what's called open phones. Now, what we're going to do today is it's going to be open phones. Well, I was trying to decide, should we say open phones on steroids? Nah. That might hint at a sordid past as an offensive lineman. No, this will be, it wasn't that sordid, not any, in my case, roids didn't stand for stare, they stand for himmer. Well, anyway, that's too much information. So rather than that, think of open phones on warp speed. There we go, a Star Trek little reference. And here's the deal. In hour 3, you called Marvelous Mac, who's standing by, not only producing and directing, but screening the phones unless he can appeal to some other grizzled broadcast veteran to step into the control room with an extra pair of hands. When you call us third hour, 615-737-9986, that's 615-737-WWTN. Mac will get your name. I don't know if I have time to write down a location. You will have exactly 30 seconds to say what's on your mind. Now, we'd ask that you keep it clean, because if you think you're going to have the juvenile delight of coming in and talking dirty on the radio, well, that's what the morning guys do. No, I'm just... But, all those PO'd references. Now, I'm not a prude or anything, but I guess I'm an old line broadcaster. I just say upset or peeved. Those old boys were talking PO and HE double hockey sticks and all sorts of stuff. Anyway, so the deal is we will line you up. You will be cited on the air when we say go, or we'll say, what's on your mind? You've got exactly 30 seconds. If you go, JD, man, how are you? That takes up your precious time. You go, you know what upsets me? Those 8 folks in the debate for mayor last night, they didn't have the 9th candidate. Let me tell you who that guy is, or whatever you want to talk about. That Dan Mandus, that dang Matt Morey going to play pickleball? And then you can make the appropriate reference. Oh, speaking of which, Dan, here's the informal poll first, Marvelous Mac. What should be the nickname for the esteemed morning host and program director? The nickname, I was, Dan the Man. Man, you got the rhyme with the first name.
Yeah, Dan the Man Mandus is pretty good.
Yeah, I was using that, but then it hit me this morning. Should he be Dan Praying Mandus in a pun on the insect? And look, now, Dan, if you hear this, it's not to upset you, pal. I was just thinking, as a fan of when Turner bought the Hanna-Barbera library and they started doing Adult Swim, and there was that giant praying mantis, Zorak, it just was, well, I won't go. Boy, you can see where I'm headed with this thing. Back to the mission at hand. Third hour, mouth off to Music City. Your chance, again, exactly 30 seconds to say what's on your mind. For example, man, JD Hayworth is the greatest guy I've ever heard. Sure would be great at Super Talk and make Super Talk even more super by hiring JD Hayworth. Well, did I say that? Okay, anyway. I'm not saying you have to. I'm just giving you a for instance, an example. Strike that from the record. Okay, so that's hour 3. Next hour, a little broadcast history and a reference for even now. The acronym for those in the know way back when was simply TW3. Not TWA, that was an airline. TW3, it was with it back in the Stone Age, and we will employ that concept in hour 2. So we have a plan. It's like SS Shirley Red Wilson, who coached at Elon, then was at Duke, but twixt and tween he'd have a football camp. He say, fellas, I'm going to tell you what we're going to do this afternoon, so you know. I think it's better you know, rather than wondering, well, how long does monkey drill last? And it was better to hear what was coming off, and that's what we do in broadcasting. So hour 3, mouth off to Music City. Hour 2, we reveal the historic broadcast meaning of TW3, and we employ it based on our body of work for, well, 4 of the last 5 work days. That may give you a clue. But we begin today, and Marvelous Mac, you came into the studio, well, I don't want to say breathless, but in the grizzled antique references of the past, I hope I'm pleasant, but do you find me a demanding taskmaster in terms of all the elements we have to today's broadcast? No, good.
It's just going to make it even better.
Exactly. Marvelous Mac Maury displaying the moxie that is needed. And moxie, man, that's a ding-ding-dong soft drink. We still have the word, and I don't know what became of the drink. But you may need some of Papaw's cough syrup after today's show, especially this first hour. Now, for whatever reason, I thought this thing would be all over the Fox News channel, and maybe it was. Oh, yeah, closed circuit to Dan praying Mandus. The pickleball thing I saw at the Hayworth Hacienda this morning, up there in suburbia, the guys who take the train in from Connecticut, is a big new pickleball court structure, domed, of course, because it gets real cold up there in the winter. And they open it next week, and they had one of the Foxettes out there, and these other dudes playing pickleball, and thereby hangs a brief tale. When I returned to Arizona after my TV time on Newsmax, based in South Florida, I got a call from a responsible citizen of the Valley of the Sun. Congressman, are you familiar with pickleball? Well, no, I'm not. Well, you really should get familiar with it. In fact, we're putting together a governing authority, and we would like you to have a position of prominence. Well, like a stupid idiot I said, well, that's very thoughtful. I don't think my time will allow it, not realizing that I was going to be in a situation where, well, the Statler brothers sang Flowers on the Wall. I don't want to say it was quite inactive, but it took a while for the phone to start ringing. And I was still doing that morning show on Newsmax from a small studio in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'll just leave it at that. So I turned down the chance, and I don't know if this group has become the governing federation, but I think of the old governor, and I think he was a senator too, from up north of Tennessee in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, A.B. Happy Chandler, who became the commissioner of baseball. Man, I could have been a modern day A.B. Happy Chandler, but I instinctively said no to pickleball. Not that I regret it. I'm happy to be with you right now. And now back to what's going on here. Yeah, the whole cocaine deal at the White House, we'll get to that later. But what is happening with all the discussion of all that? Hey, it's a game of White House Clue for the whole family. Is it the crackhead son? Is it another derelict working at the White House? You make your guess. I've got a unique theory that will come up a little later. We'll try to fit it in this hour. But the New York Post, the same folks who brought us the scoop of Hunter Biden's laptop from HE double hockey sticks in October of 2020 that was censored by the press in consultation with the FBI, the DOJ, and other federal authorities, and I guess the NSA. Well, Miranda Devine over there has a story that is going to be HE double hockey sticks on Earth for, again, institutions that seem to be filled with rot. Now, a shout out to sweet, petite Miss Mary, my beautiful bride. Dynamite comes in small packages. She said to me earlier this week, "Hey, honey, there was some witness who was supposed to come before the Oversight Committee and they can't find him." Well, they sure enough have found him now, courtesy of the New York Post. A resident of Israel, Dr. Gal Luft. You see, back in the day, the Israelis do business with a lot of folks, and just like we do business with the communist Chinese, against my better instincts and my active opposition, both in Congress and behind the microphone, the Israelis have a thing going, and this guy, Dr. Gal Luft, was working for that Chinese energy company. What are the letters on that thing? Like CEP. Anyway, we're gonna call it Mao's Oil Company. Maybe that's a little too much of an oblique reference, but it's that Chinese energy company that Hunter was shaking down on the phone. That revelation came to light. This guy goes to the feds in 2019. He gives them the info, and the next thing you know, they're going to throw this boy in the slammer. So he put together a 14-minute video. It was on the New York Post website. We have condensed it down to you. This is fugitive witness Dr. Gal Luft from an undisclosed location. He got away from the guys arresting him, so he is a fugitive. He explains what happened and why he came forward. Take a listen to cut one.
My ordeal goes back to a fatal decision I made in March of 2019 to share with the U.S. government my knowledge about the Biden family's relations with CFC. As I said, it was in March of 2019 in a two-day session at the U.S. Embassy in Brussels. I insisted that the meeting take place in March because at the time there were rumors that Joe Biden was planning to run for president. I saw it as my civic duty to alert the government beforehand and give it enough time to probe the issue.
All right. Now, did you hear it in there? His use of English, I think he meant to say fateful decision. Instead, he said fatal decision. Oh, I hope it's not a fatal decision for him. Because we've seen guys like Epstein and that slammer wake up dead. Anyway, Dr. Gal Luft, like other whistleblowers, like Gary Shapley over at the IRS, the good doctor makes it clear, hey, I'm not playing politics. I don't have a political axe to grind, but there are some crimes going on, y'all. Cut two.
I want to be clear. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I have no political motive or agenda. I did it out of deep concern that if the Bidens were to come to power, the country would be facing the same traumatic Russia collusion scandal, only this time with China.
And only this time, it's not made up. I better let him continue. Sorry about that. Can we pick it up right there? Is that okay, Mac?
Sadly, because of the DOJ's cover-up, this is exactly what happened.
Yeah, okay, so he's laying it out there. And this is what disturbs me about guys like Bill Barr. You know, Bill Barr went off to Notre Dame, gave this great speech about faith and commitment to country. Well, he sees it a heck of a lot differently than I do. I believe in protecting the Constitution. I don't believe you should keep institutions filled with ethical rot 1 nanosecond longer when it's proven those agencies are corrupt and they are not carrying out the will of the people and they themselves are not upholding the rule of law. we will have more of Dr. Gal Luft. And very curiously, he's in Brussels, and a big contingent of DOJ people and FBI guys come to see him over there. That part of the story is next. It's 20 minutes past 9. It's the recovering Congressman JD Hayworth on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. "24 minutes past 9, Friday. How about that? Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Number to call 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. Remember, Hour 3, open phones at warp speed. Mouth off to Music City. You'll get exactly 30 seconds. If you don't get it done in 30 seconds, boom, we move to the next caller. So that should be interesting. Now, what is interesting is the testimony of fugitive witness Dr. Gal Luft. Isn't it kind of interesting? And this guy is now a resident of Israel. He was working for a company doing business in the U.S. of A. through Hunter Biden and doing business in Israel. And I guess even though this guy was in the Israeli army, I don't know if he's had American citizenship. But to me, what strikes me, Mac, is that newest Wonder Woman. What is her name? Gal something, and she's a gal. And this gal is a dude, but it's none of that lifestyle choice change or, cross-dressing. Or anything.
Gal Gadot?
Gal Gadot,
yes.
Yeah. Now, for my money, and, maybe because she was raised in Phoenix and her daddy was in the Rotary Club with me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Colby
Wow.
and LaRue Carter had three, and, they still very much have those three daughters who were knockouts. Linda with a Y Carter. Man, as the Wonder Woman, she'd make you wonder. I mean, I got to tell you, she was my favorite. And then I come to town, I get to know her folks, and they were big supporters. Now, for her part, this is where Linda's star dimmed a little bit for me. She married a Democrat lobbyist in D.C. Yeah. So it was back to Julie Newmar as Catwoman on Batman when I was a kid. And actually, Julie Newmar came to D.C. That's another story for another time. We continue with the testimony from Dr. Gal Luft, who is laying it out. He says, look, there's some bad things going on with Hunter Biden, and he contacts the Department of Justice. And since he's headquartered in Brussels doing international business, the DOJ sends six people to interview him. This is cut 3.
The DOJ sent to Brussels a delegation of 6 people, 2 prosecutors from the Southern District of New York by the names of Daniel Reichenthal and Catherine Ghosh, and 4 FBI agents. One of them was Special Agent Joshua Wilson from the Baltimore Field Office, which also happens to cover the state of Delaware. Now you want to ask yourself, why did the government dispatch to Europe so many people? Why 6? Why not 2? The answer is that they knew very well that I'm a credible witness.
Did we lose it? Did you lose my
that
signal?
I have insider knowledge about the group and the individuals that enriched the Biden family.
So you're hearing this stuff, and Dr. Luft is saying, well, there's wrongdoing. I'm going to go to the DOJ and the FBI. They send a 6-pack, 6 people over, and he names names. There's a reason for that, and you'll hear it a bit later. In his own words, he says he spent an intensive 2 days detailing exactly what he knew. Listen to cut 4.
I shared my information about the Biden family's financial transactions with CFC, including specific dollar figures. I also provided the name of Rob Walker, who later became known as Hunter Biden's bagman. Yet, as we now know today from the whistleblower testimony, Gary Shapley, it took the DOJ a whole 21 months to probe the issue and to actually talk to Walker.
Now, isn't it, and this is really one of the key elements of the story, the DOJ slow walks this thing. 21 months? When you've got a trail of corruption involving a former vice president of the United States, his crackhead boy, and the communist Chinese government working through this energy company, paying money to these guys, and they wait 21 months. You're going to have to wait just a couple of minutes to get the rest of this story, and What was that flick? The forgettable Tom Hanks flick, The Spy with One Red Shoe or something, way back in the Stone Age. Almost cost him his career. It was, well, maybe Bachelor Party was in there too. Didn't do any favors for him. But this is complete with a mole who has a distinguishing physical characteristic. No, it's not a giant mole on his chin. This story gets even more incredible, and we will get to it right after you catch up on today's top stories. It's 9:30, and it's JD Hayworth on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. "26 minutes in front of 10. recovering Congressman JD Hayworth, who is living a real-life drama as radio is the medium of imagination, but occasionally we try to fill in the blanks, sometimes inadvertently, my little apparatus that allows me to indulge in radio magic. Now, maybe it's going to be so dang hot in the Sonoran Desert today. They're talking out in Phoenix, where I'm close by in Scottsdale. Swimming pools, movie stars, y'all. They're talking 120 today.
No.
Yeah, for the record, Mac,
Wow.
the highest temperature out here,
Whoa.
122.
Oh.
And that came, well, let's see, it got up to like 118 Independence Day, but later that month it got up to 122. And using that 1990 technology, the manuals for airliners said, well, you can only operate these things safely up to 120. So the poor guys at Sky Harbor International Airport go out there with their real accurate thermometers and wait for a little temperature fluctuation down below 120 to like 119. So imagine being on a plane, and it's not just because Pete Buttigieg is, wrecking our transportation infrastructure, part of the Sovietization of America under Joe Biden, and Buttigieg's own incompetence. But hey, he's so clever and he checks all those boxes for the current crowd in charge. That's what they had to do. And my beloved bride was with child at that time, our middle daughter, Hannah. And perhaps Hannah's tempestuous personality comes from being in utero in the hottest summer in Arizona history. So we could see that again today. So I mentioned that maybe something's going on with the weather, but if you heard me earlier going, I can't hear you, well, that was part of the deal. And sure enough, now I'm seeing the send. Well, we'll see if we pick up the receive. So I'm continuing on broadcasting, but sometimes I have to let you in on the joke or let you know what's going on. This is not a joke, y'all. Oh, okay. Here's the way I can set this up. A joke told to me aboard Air Force One by none other than George W. Bush, the 43rd President of the United States. Hey, y'all know the difference between a fairy tale and a Texas tall tale? Well, no, Mr. President, we don't. What would it be? Oh, it's real simple. It's real simple. Your fairy tale starts out once upon a time. Texas tall tale starts out, hey, you all ain't gonna believe this. Boop. So, you may not believe this next part of the story. We have been listening to portions of a 14-minute video featured in the New York Post and on their same website. Now, this is creating, well, for whatever reason, they're not, I have not seen it get play on Fox, but I also know programming stuff going on is oftentimes based on, well, this thing with cocaine, it's real easy to explain. But knowing that you are a smart, discerning, thinking American, connected to current events, concerned for the future of our republic, you have listened thus far to the testimony of Dr. Gal Luft, a fugitive witness who had to get away when American authorities tried to arrest him in Cyprus. He put together the video from an undisclosed location, and now it gets really interesting. I mean, it's interesting enough in terms of the fact, hey guys, Hunter Biden's taking payoffs from the Chinese, and this guy tells the DOJ and the FBI in March of 2019. But wait, there's more. I referenced the motion picture from Tom Hanks in the 80s, not one of his greatest films, and Mac checked on things. It's not the spy with one red shoe, it's the man with one red shoe. There are other things like the spy who came in from the cold. All of this combines. Here is what Dr. Gal Luft says about an FBI agent who is a mole tipping off the Biden crime family. This is cut 5.
Perhaps the most alarming information I revealed was of a mole within the DOJ who shared classified information with Hunter Biden and his Chinese partners. I told the DOJ that Hunter was closely associated with a very senior retired FBI official who had distinct physical characteristic. He had one eye. One of the FBI agents at the time even told me, that would be very easy for us to find. There aren't that many one-eyed people in the Bureau.
Now, you hear this and you're going, wow. This is like the eccentric neighbor who thinks he's going to be the next Tom Clancy, and he writes a cheesy spy novel. Maybe this element of the story sounds fantastic, but it's so story-like. I mean, are you going to testify to this kind of stuff if you're not telling the truth? So they got a one-eyed traitor in the FBI whose allegiance is to the Biden family. Here's the real concern. I was talking about my darling daughter in that hot summer in Phoenix way back in 1990. Oh, mercy. Well, Dr. Gal Luft says it took the FBI and the DOJ a total gestation period. His account confirmed 9 months later, oh, by the way, not courtesy of the FBI, but the same New York Post who he's talking to. He told the feds in March, it comes to light, and in the free press in October, but of course, the FBI and DOJ, in conjunction with social media and other internet presences, censor it. Don't talk about it. Here's Dr. Luft in his own words, cut 6.
The information I provided the FBI in March of 2019 was fully corroborated 9 months later when the famous laptop belonging to Hunter Biden, which contained all the emails and receipts, was handed to the FBI. And guess who seized the laptop from the computer repair shop? It was Special Agent Joshua Wilson, who was with me in Brussels earlier.
Memo to FBI agent Josh Wilson, son, you better lawyer up. But then again, given who's running Washington, Democrats who don't give a tinker's damn about the Constitution, and wronghead Republicans who, we must preserve these institutions, the hell with the Constitution. Oh, I'm dropping that HE double hockey sticks. Maybe you can see why. You'll forgive me in this instance. Now, Marvelous Mac, were we able to come up with the clincher that was a little elusive? That would be cut 7. You able to get that one?
I was not.
Okay, that's all right. It's still, we basically have the story right here. Dr. Gal Luft, now in the video that he has shot in an undisclosed location The New York Post getting a hold of it, publicizing it, you hearing the audio of it right now. This guy is telling you, and I guess we shouldn't be surprised, but the Department of Justice decided that it would obstruct justice in the case of the Biden crime family. And the irony is, this is going on when Donald John Trump is president of the United States. And you had that curious situation over at Justice. I mean, you have Jeff Sessions, a guy I always liked when he was in the Senate. He goes over to DOJ and suddenly they got him hogtied. You can speculate for yourself over what that involved. Then you got these career bureaucrats, these guys you can look at and, sorry, but you look at them and you just kind of go, is this guy's loyalty to the Constitution or to his future pension? And they come in and they just spend their time lying and denying stuff to Congress, in my opinion. But this is not good. Now, I don't know, maybe you think that this is a tall tale, like George W. said, Texas tall tale. But it's, the New York Post went with it. They must have been able to check this stuff out. But then again, everything's been ignored thus far. And the Bidens are still ensconced at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Now, when we come back, we get to Cocaine Gate, because that's eaten up all the headlines. It's become the big distraction. But when we come back, I'll give you my theory, on why Hunter continues to maybe act out, and then why the White House is trying to pin this on somebody else. I'll name that name when we get back. It's 9:47. Recovering Congressman JD Hayworth on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. "12 minutes until 10 Central Daylight Time. Shedding daylight, the light of truth, and some disturbing allegations that, to me, you kind of wonder. It's one of those things that make you go, Why would the Department of Justice obstruct justice? Why would it happen during the Trump administration? Well, this is an age-old problem. Back when I was studying such matters, before I actually got to do these things, courtesy of the people of Arizona as a member of Congress, Abraham Holtzman. Abe was a great guy. He was a distinguished professor at NC State. He had grown up out in California, gone to school at UCLA, and it was back at a time when Abe said deer would run across the campus out there in Westwood. And maybe it still goes on. I know up north in California, Walnut Creek, a suburb of San Francisco, Oakland, San Francisco. It's kind of weird geographically when you take the BART out from city center of San Francisco, where I was doing radio a little more than a decade ago, and going out to visit one of my old buddies in Congress who lived in Walnut Creek. Well, sure enough, deer would show up in people's yards out there. So maybe it was still going on at UCLA. At any rate, Abe Holtzman, dyed-in-the-wool Democrat, as a UCLA student, I guess it was, got to meet Harry Truman at the White House. And for my senior seminar, I was a double major in speech and political science at NC State. My Duke-educated mother, she was so smart. Honey, you already know this. Just stick with speech for your broadcasting, but go ahead and get a business major or a minor. Well, thanks, Ma, but I'll figure that out later. Again, Mama tried, to quote Merle. Mama tried to raise me better. Well, anyway, for senior seminar, it was on the modern presidency. And the base text for us was a book by Richard E. Neustadt from the John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard. And one portion of the book deals with a problem for just about every president. Harry Truman said when he was leaving the White House, because there had been some bad blood stirred up between he and his successor, Truman says, poor Ike, he's going to come in here and say, do this and do that, and nothing's going to get done. Because he's used to delegating authority. And this is way back circa 1952-53. Our bureaucracy has grown exponentially since then, and so you get bureaucratic inertia where the folks who are unelected think they know more than the elected officials. And boy, was that going on. The swamp was trying to overrun the Trump administration, and you see it clear as day now, and we're getting more information from guys like Dr. Gal Luft. Gal Luft is on the lam. Hopefully they'll work out a deal where Chairman Comer can get him back safely to testify in front of the Government Oversight Committee. Now, to the thing that everybody's talking about. Closed circuit to Mac. Mac, you there? Well,
hey, what's going on, JD? Sorry,
All
I told
right,
you I was
brother.
going to the restroom. Hey, man.
Hey, well, now let's lapse
Peel
into,
behind back the curtain a little bit there.
Well, here's the way we can do it much more elegantly. One of my buddies, who I think is back living in the environs of Music City, because I think his lovely bride's a Tennessean, Jack Rusa, the son of Apollo 14 command module pilot Stuart Rusa, was a fighter pilot himself, and then he was one of my big supporters in my Senate campaign against McCain for the nomination back in 2010. And he was living down in Tucson at the time, and we're going in. I got to go meet with the Tucson Chamber of Commerce. He says, listen, you need to take a bio break? I said, man, that is so cool. That is so astronaut-like. So henceforth, for your vocabulary, you have to take a bio break. See, isn't that great? You've learned so much in just a little bit of time here. Now, we're moving to Cocaine Gate, and it's very interesting. NBC News yesterday, now Kelly O'Donnell is the senior White House correspondent. Heck, back in 2010, she was covering my Senate campaign. But yesterday, on with another pal, Andrea Mitchell, she says, hey, the library, the cubbyhole, hey, there's a new location where that cocaine was found in the White House. Take a listen to Cut 8.
Let me bring you up to date with the reporting that I have. What we have learned is that there are, in fact, two West Wing entrances. You know that, I know that, but for the benefit of our audience. And now the investigation has progressed, and so they're saying the West Executive entrance, which, as you noted, is closer to the Situation Room and closer to the Navy mess, where there's the facilities for food and so forth. It is also next to West Executive Drive. That's where, for example, the vice president's vehicle is parked.
Okay, right there. For example, that's where the vice president's vehicle is parked. Mark Twain said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. Let me take you back to 1973-74. Goldwater, a lot of guys they called him Ted Agnew. His name was Spiro Theodore Agnew, Nixon's vice president. DOJ brings up a charge, some sort of bid ringing on a deal in Baltimore when Agnew was the Republican governor of Baltimore, elected in 1966. Agnew cops a plea, no contest, and resigns as vice president. A man of the House, Jerry Ford, steps in, and by August of 1974, Jerry Ford is president. Let me tell you what I'm thinking here, y'all, and I think you should at least entertain this based on that historical reference. Kamala is a problem. She has few public appearances. They don't want her doing nothing. The DOJ, yeah, that's coming in just to say they don't want cackling Kamala. Now, my dear wife has said, you know, they're saying this is some sort of psychological reflex. Mary says, nah, she's on something. And if you would doubt the observation of the love of my life, my darling wife, let me take you to a recent appearance by the vice president. She's down in Nolens at let's just call it what it is. It's a pro-abortion event. They're thinking that since they think that got a lot of suburban moms away, why ironies abound here. At any rate, they're trying to sell the abortion scare thing here about, well, there's not going to be any more abortion, even though the Supreme Court left it up to the states to decide. And Kamala goes into one of her goofy verbal seizures where she has a word salad going on, and in lieu of rhetorical salad dressing, she finishes this thing off with cackling. Take a listen to cut 9.
Well, I think culture is a reflection of our moment in our time, right? And present culture is the way we express how we're feeling about the moment. And we should always find times to express how we feel about the moment that is a reflection of joy, because it comes in the morning.
Well, I guess, now I don't know if cackling Kamala realized it, but I think that's a biblical reference, right? Joy comes in the morning, not to be confused with that 1960s film starring then very young Richard Chamberlain, who was, I guess, on leave from lensing Dr. Kildare for NBC. They had a break in shooting, so he's in that flick with the little French cupcake, Yvette Mimieux. No, not joy comes in the morning from that flick, but from Scripture. Or then again, given Kamala, and I'm not here to talk about her spiritual journey, where she stands. It's her business. There shall be no religious test. But I'm telling you what, if there was a toxicology test, it sure enough sounds to me like the vice president may be vacuuming up some Bolivian baby powder, y'all. So don't be surprised, even if that's not true, that they plant evidence to get rid of Kamala. Coming back, what is TW3? You'll find out in hour 2. Stay tuned.
From ABC News, I'm Derek Dennis. Questions remain over that deadly fire on a cargo ship at the port of Newark, New Jersey. The U.S. Coast Guard holding a news conference saying the fire is still burning with no timetable on when it'll be out nearly 40 hours later, and denying a major point of contention that Newark firefighters were not trained to put out a blaze on a ship without passengers. Coast Guard officials saying there's extensive training, but also admitting
we do not have a fire department within the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. We do currently rely on the local municipalities.
Coast Guard official Beth Rooney, no comment on another claim that Newark fire hose connections didn't match those on board the Italian ship. The investigation is ongoing. The Biden administration expected to announce today it will provide cluster munitions to Ukraine in its war against Russia. That's controversial since some 100 countries have banned them over humanitarian concerns. The munitions, part of an anticipated new $800 million aid package for Ukraine. And more from the Biden administration on short-term health insurance.
Today, the president will announce a rule that would limit short-term plans to just 3 months, require plans to disclose their limits of coverage, including to existing customers, and push providers to disclose extra charges like facility fees.
ABC's Rachel Scott. It's a full-on feud between Twitter and Meta, the parent company of Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, Twitter's new social media rival. Twitter CEO Elon Musk threatening to sue Meta, accusing the company of stealing Twitter's trade secrets and some of its workers. Meta denies that.
Part of the problem is that Twitter is not known as a sort of engineering marvel. It's not known for having a ton of proprietary technology. So the question is going to be exactly what are you alleging was stolen and how was it used?
ABC News Chief Legal Analyst Dan Abrams, nearly 100 million Thread subscribers already. You're listening to ABC News.
Four minutes past 10, hour 2 of our Friday thing. Just for the record, I'm not, in fact, I think this could be a pretty good comedy sketch show. The insert your name here show. That's just not my thing. Even though I love hearing my name and being a pompous ASS, I would practice my signature for the World Book Encyclopedia. If you're hip to what World Book used to be, yeah, you're a boomer. But World Book, they'd have a full color picture of President whoever it was, and you'd see his signature. So I said, well, I got to get one of those, and I worked that up. Yes, just a glimpse into the tortured psyche of recovering Congressman and longtime broadcaster JD Hayworth. Now, I've got to tell you, 1 hour from now, it could be historic, but that depends on YOU. Think of open phones at warp speed. 1 hour from now, we will indulge in what I'm going to call mouth off to Music City. You, when you dial in, Magnificent Matt will, Matt's old boy on comes, but he's not here today. He's on vacation off at pickleball camp. Magnificent Mac, and speaking of Mac, well, I'll get to this in a second, but Mac, just so you're forewarned, you're the subject of a message that has arrived via.
Oh gosh.
No, it's a very good one.
Okay,
I will get to that, and just don't worry. There's not there. You can rest easy, son. It is laudatory. Okay, now here's the deal. When you call in 1 hour from now, 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. Mac's going to get you online. He's going to put your name on the call board. Let's just say that Myrtle calls in from Gallatin. On line 1 from Gallatin, it's Myrtle. Myrtle, your 30 seconds begins now. And Myrtle will have 30 seconds.
Hi, JD.
That's right. If Myrtle goes, your mama sounds like such a sweet lady. I try to be a mama like that. In other words, now Myrtle can talk about what Myrtle wants to talk about, as long as she keeps it clean.
Yes.
But when Myrtle says, now tell me, how much chow did you eat? And it goes over 30 seconds, boom, we cut the call. Not that I won't tell you about the chow I used to eat. In fact, thereby hangs another tale. Given the border disagreement and the China trade disagreement I had with George W. Bush, he still was a pretty good guy. He was flying down to North Carolina to speak at the groundbreak. Well, not the groundbreaking, the completion of the renovation of High Point Memorial Hospital, the historic site, because that was where I was born. But he was there because of politics. Pretty boy John Edwards was going to run for president, being a trial lawyer. The doctors didn't like him, so George W.'s coming down. He calls my mama and daddy from Air Force One. Mama answers the phone. Oh, Mr. President. Because the phone rings. Hello. This is White House operator. Stand by for the president on Air Force One. So my mom, oh, Mr. President, you're calling, but you've got to be careful. There's a thunderstorm. Well, Gladys, you don't have to worry about that. That's part of my drought relief program. Hey, where's John? He's always drawing up a plan to help me with this war. Oh, Mr. President, he's back here in the office he has just off the kitchen. It used to be JD's bedroom. And George W. says, he lived there with a room right off the kitchen. No wonder he got to be such a big old boy. Hey, Gladys, put Johnny on the phone. And so, I mean, George W.'s a good guy. He just made some bad decisions. And gives me a chance to count. So if you ever think I'm enraged by him, I had some profound disagreements with him, but he was a good guy, and that was kind of an interesting thing with my mama, and that whole reference to eating, and my mixing it up with Chris Christie, where my weight reduction surgery took and his apparently didn't. Well, anyway, so the deal is 1 hour from now, mouth off to Music City. mindful of what the NBC television network ran as a public affairs program in the late 60s and early 70s on Sunday afternoon when the NFL wasn't on. Experiment in television? No, this will be an experiment in radio. And we have the courage to try this. Now, to make it an award-winning episode, we'll be counting on you to call and give us 30 seconds of what's firing you up. And you can go shorter than 30 seconds. JDSUX. You know, you can do that because that's not really dirty talk. That's just kind of a colloquialism spelled out. You can do that. In the meantime, and let's say you're shy, you don't want to call. You're nervous, you get sweaty palms, your voice goes up a couple of 18 octaves. You don't have to call. Well, it's a story of a famous football coach who went to one SEC institution and coached another. One of my crosstown opponents was, he had the nickname Goofy. And this particular coach used to be at a rival institution in North Carolina. And so Goofy went on down to the campus, and this aforementioned coach reached out to him. Goofy, what's wrong, son? Well, Coach, I just don't think college is for me. Well, what is it, son? Is it having to study? You don't have to study. So call. You don't have to call. You can use social media. In this case, I just stick with something that's kind of businesslike. LinkedIn.com. All like one word. LinkedIn.com. Go there, that little magnifying glass search thing, punch on that, type J.D. Hayworth, Hayworth, and then we can do a chat like the New Jerseyan turned North Carolinian brother Matt, who checks in, and he listens closely. He said, JD, man, surprised that you said the double L and not hockey sticks. And here, Mac, get ready. This is the reference to you, buddy. He says, you mesh well with that millennial Mac fellow. So maybe that's it. We'll just millennial Mac. Is that accurate chronologically?
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, millennial Mac. Okay. Well, Matthew says that you and I mesh well, Mr. Millennial. And then he says, don't forget to let us know what days you're on next week. And that is a timely reminder. So get ready for your schedules, boys and girls. You will hear me Monday morning. And then when you hear me Thursday morning, in this same time period, on many of this same station, you will be hearing from an older man because I celebrate a birthday on Wednesday. So I will be here with you to bask in the afterglow on Thursday. So do we have it down, boys and girls? Monday, 9 till noon, and Thursday, 9 till noon. Now, one other piece of information from Matthew. He says, your theory on, deep sixing Kamala via the Bolivian baby powder that they think ought to be pinned on Hunter, that's what everybody's saying now. He says, no. They have to put Kamala in the top spot or there will be HE double hockey sticks to pay. With all due respect to Miss Mary, it does not matter if Kamala is coked up and cackling. They got to do this because of, a political payment to longtime supporters. Now, never mind the fact, Kamala comes in, and in that first debate, actually, and I guess, maybe she's got a movie career ahead of her because she had that thing set up. Remember, she got old Dodder and Joe that first Democrat debate in the 2020 cycle where she hits old Joe with a thing about, you celebrated sitting with segregationist senators. You had good things to say about John Stennis of Mississippi, and she says, but you know, I can remember the stories of students, little students, first and second graders, kindergartners, catching a school bus every morning to go to a school outside of their neighborhood that gave them a better opportunity. I know because I was that little first grader. So she does like this tribute to court-ordered busing, and everybody's thinking, well, Kamala's down with the cause, y'all, but here is the deal with Kamala. She rather than her heritage being like African American, she could claim African American heritage, I believe, but also East Indian, right? The Indian subcontinent. She had a whole thing going on. Kind of like, remember when Tiger Woods was saying, well, what do you call yourself? He says, I'm a Calabonesian. Remember that? I think that was his reference. So Kamala had that going, and she was flying high after that first debate. Then it all came down on her because she'd start talking about culture is where we are now. Yeah, so like we heard in Nollins. But hey, you think about what happened to Spiro Agnew in 73. They had to get him out of there, put in Jerry Ford. Jerry Ford was a good guy. I'm sure I would have liked Ted Agnew. But for whatever reason, they said, look, you know, this thing, and the whole deal was Dick Nixon, for all the villainy about Richard M. Nixon, he really tried to do the right thing. Turns out all that stuff from back in the 50s on the House Un-American Committee, Alger Hiss and those guys, we finally got access to the archives in Moscow. Guess what? Every one of those leftists were card-carrying commies. Mercy. To the phones we go. Checking in here. Let me get my glasses on so I can see. From Franklin, it's Brother Nick. Hello, Nick. Hello, Nick.
Hey, I appreciate you taking my call.
You bet.
Hey, something that's just been on my mind. I know a lot of the other talk shows have been talking about the presidential race, but you know, one of my things is we also need to be focusing on is the U.S. Congress or congressional races, because you know, without full support, no matter what maybe the presidential candidate has in mind, if it doesn't get passed through, you know, Congress through the proper processes, it's just going to be, you know, another storm. You know, my thing is that I wish that the Republican Party, whoever the nominee becomes, is that they get down and sit down and have a sit down together and outline, you know, 10, 15 bullet points of exactly changes that when they take over, that they will immediately have legislation in the ready to go ahead and bring up that the president and Congress would both agree on immediately. Instead of trying to take times that are maybe the bigger issues, go ahead and get everything else taken care of first, then work on the other issues where there may be a little bit more discontent on.
You know what, Nick? You're speaking my language. In fact, I lived it. In 1994, it was called the Contract with America. 10 items that we pledged to bring up for a vote. And the way we got this out to America sounds archaic now in the internet age. But back in the day, TV Guide magazine had a greater circulation than any other publication. I think TV Guide and Reader's Digest. And the National Republican Congressional Committee went with TV Guide, and we put a perforated thing saying, we'll vote on these 10 issues the first 100 days. If we don't do it, fire us. We mean it. And what you are saying is quite right, Nick. It is a good way to have a positive agenda, and you should never, ever discount that. You're quite right.
And I think if they had that organization, then they would get more support as essentially saying, hey, these are the first 10 things that we want to do. Immediately, we're going to get them passed because we already know we have all full support. And then you could immediately start affecting change without having to have all this bickering and drama over, you know, different bills and everything.
Well, no, you're still going to have the dickering and the drama, but you're going to have an agenda, and you're going to be willing to stay in. We would stay in late at night. That first day we were in Congress, we were in session till 3 a.m. Eastern time. We went through the first, so you go there and you go to work. And in fact, I took to heart what Newt said about, now look, we don't have any institutional memory, that we have to be ready because these guys may come in and try to tie the floor in knots. So I would leave Arizona. I would take the red eye Sunday night, Monday morning during the contract time, just to be there in case we needed a body on the floor to stop the Democrats from trying to pull hijinks. Because we really, I didn't realize, even with that ambitious schedule, the real votes would usually come on a Tuesday, but we did it because we were serious about the commitment to the promises we had made. So you and I are speaking the same language, Nick. I think you're on the right track. The only thing I would say, yeah, history said Wilson had 17 points for a post-World War I world, or as they called it, post-Great War. You don't want to crowd it out too much. 10 is about the limit. I'd probably go with the 5, not that TV show on Fox, but identifiable goals, and here's what we'll do to pass it. Nick, good call. When we come back, TW3, what it means to you, what it will mean to me. It's JD at 1021 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. 25 minutes past 10. A reminder that next hour, it's mouth off to Music City. You'll get 30 seconds to say what you want to say as long as you don't talk dirty. See, we've got ways to shut that down because it's just impolite. But other than that, you can say what you want to say. And we're going to do that. Now, as you and I get acquainted, you discover that I have a special interest in history. Now, it's not always in the ancient world and with the great philosophical thinkers of history. I guess it's a little more middle brow, which is good. You know, I mean, because this coverage area is Middle Tennessee, y'all, and middle brow is, well, what the heck does that mean anyway? It sounded good. But the deal is, I really enjoy political and broadcast history. And during my lifetime, but quite some time ago, about the time I was getting ready for the first grade, there was a show that was such a sensation. Not the first time this has happened. It caught on with such a craze in England. And after all, the British had given us the Beatles about a half year before. So what BBC was doing on Friday nights in the UK came to NBC on Friday nights in the US of A. That was the week that was. Shorthand, TW3. And it's one of the reasons David Frost, who you may remember, in fact, if you're a millennial like Mac, maybe you've seen the videos. Nixon, after his days as president, hired Hollywood agent Irving Swifty Lazar to cut a deal for him to sit down and do an interview. And David Frost, the British talk show host, David Frost came to America. He was imported from the BBC cast of That Was the Week That Was to come do the show in the US of A. That's how David Frost got to these shores. And that's, he ended up with the David Frost syndicated talk show that would compete with the likes of, Merv, before Merv did CBS and then afterwards. And then, of course, Mike Douglas, where the late Fox television impresario Roger Ailes got his start. He was a booker for Mike Douglas. But anyway, I digress. So David Frost came to the US of A for TW3. That was the week that was. Now, given the way I think, and understanding that both in broadcasting and in life in general, well, Scripture reminds us what? There is nothing new under the sun. And if you happen to be a Georgia grad, I'm not picking on you, but every person I have met who has matriculated down in Athens always goes into well, in fact, one of the most celebrated, a very celebrated alumnus from UGA, Fran Tarkenton. Fran's still doing a lot of work, not doing, obviously, not sportscasting any longer. He said, look, you take a good idea, you don't have to reinvent it, you just got to make it better. Now, it doesn't work, and I know that Francis Tarkenton was not saying plagiarize somebody else's work, but when you stop and think about academic rigor, when you have to present your senior thesis, you are building a new idea based on the readership, based on the scholarship of those who've gone before. Or to put it in a more pedestrian term about television, it's why when I was a kid, The Price is Right was on NBC with Bill Cullen, And then fast forward to the time when I was in high school, The Price is Right is suddenly back on CBS with Bob Barker. And now I guess they still run it with Drew Carey. There have been different iterations. So when we come back, the radio version of That Was the Week That Was, where we go back to earlier this week with a couple of things that really resonated with you. And we will have that for you. That's coming up in mere moments. It's the radio premiere of TW3, new and improved, and exclusively here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Mercy, it is 10:31. Stay with me. "34 minutes past 10 Central Daylight Time. Using my ciphering skills, almost as legendary as Max Baer Jr., also known as Jethro Bodine, from the Beverly Hillbillies, and a personal friend of mine. That means we are 26 minutes away from the top of the hour. ABC News, and then following that, radio history with Mouth Off to Music City. Now, I've been running my mouth, and we're just 25 minutes away. So, given my proclivities for political history, broadcast history, we're taking the work done in the 1960s. I think there was an effort to do a syndicated version of this more recently, and when I say more recently, a couple of decades ago. At any rate, shorthand for this in the press and everywhere else was TW3. That was the week that was. On a Friday night in 1964 in the US of A, you'd see it on NBC, and Nancy Ames was the singer here on these shores. I don't think Nancy was kin to Ed Ames or the Ames brothers, but I do know that she teamed with, this is the music angle for Music City, y'all, Mason Williams, who was one of the writers for the Smothers Brothers, or as they called the show back then, the Smothers Comedy Brothers Hour on CBS. They got thrown off. By the way, there's a great book you'll need to read about the dust-ups the Smothers Brothers used to have with CBS. The title of the book is perfect. Dangerously Funny. So I recommend that to you. At any rate, Nancy Ames and Mason Williams, the guitar guy who played Classical Gas, one of the great instrumentals of the late, great circa 1968, that same campaign year of 68, Nancy Ames and Mason Williams collaborated on a song that Nelson Rockefeller paid the rights to have in his unsuccessful campaign for the Republican nomination. And the reason why, well, the name of the song was Cinderella Rockefeller. So anyway, that was then. What you will next hear, not Nancy Ames, but the original songstress on the BBC with the theme to That Was the Week That Was. It was always topical. The words would change, but I believe this is a portion of the 45 single that became a hit in Britain and had to have words that weren't as recent as, well, the week that was. So with no further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Millicent Martin.
That was the week that was. It's over. Let it.
This particular installment, this franchise from That Was the Week That Was, but it's this week as we are together. Actually, this happened, I guess, last Saturday, July the 1st. Lindsey Graham, with whom he was a classmate, we were elected in 1994. Lindsey did this whole deal where, and again, it's not to make fun of the guy. The guy did have some challenges growing up. His parents both passed away. They had, as when you read the bio in the Almanac of American Politics, Graham said his parents ran a bear joint, they have it in quotes, a bear joint in Pickens County, South Carolina. So it's Lindsey Graham in front of the home folks in Pickens, South Carolina, a city of about 3,500 people. 50,000 people are there. And because Lindsey, basically as a senator, performs the function he did for his mom and daddy at the beer joint, where he'd go around and flatter certain folks and keep an eye on them and found out, hey, mama, Bubba Ray's going to hit Jimmy Jack with a monkey wrench unless somebody goes over there. I mean, it was a useful skill. And it translated to politics. So Lindsey, kind of like talk about life imitating art, the classic Andy Griffith Show. I set this up the other day. I guess it was like Monday when we were together. Remember the Andy Griffith Show? Yeah, you had Andy Griffith. You had Don Knotts. You even had Frances Bavier as Aunt B, not to mention a guy then known as Ronnie Howard as Opie. But you also had a recurring guest character who would show up a couple of times a year, and the episodes were always great. It was the redoubtable Howard Morris, a guy who had worked with Carl Reiner and Mel Brooks and Sid Caesar on your show of shows, a guy who was an actor in film and on Broadway. He was a director. He was multi-talented, but the role of his lifetime was Ernest T. Bass. Hey, Sheriff. It's me. It's Ernest T. And there's one episode that speaks to the Lindsey Graham experience as Ernest T. Ernest T. Hey, Sheriff, will you be my father figure? And really, I'm not making light of what Lindsey went through, losing his parents. In fact, there was a point, I think I may have, Millennial Mac, I think I may have used the wrong term on Monday when I was explaining this. But when Lindsey's parents passed away, he was, for whatever reason, even though growing up there in Pickens County, close by Clemson, he went to school down in Columbia at South Carolina. And when his mama died, Lindsey had to become the guardian of his little sister. So I think I may have mixed it up thinking about Batman and Robin. Millionaire Bruce Wayne with his young ward, Dick Grayson. So Lindsey became the guardian of his little sister, who became his ward. I think I had the syntax mixed up the other day, and maybe you turned off the radio and discussed saying, JD, you misspoke. So anyway, or maybe you were upset at the reference. But no, Lindsey took this to heart, and he made John McCain his father figure. And he rode that association pretty well in Washington and in South Carolina in the years of Bush 43, with the strong military presence in the Palmetto State, with the fact that Lindsey, I'm an Air Force veteran, I was a JAG officer down there at Shaw Air Force Base. And boy, the press, before Lindsey became a darling by pulling the McCain kind of 1-2 thing of bipartisanship, which in Washington means Republicans, you cave in to what the Democrats and those of us in the press corps want to see, since 99 and 44th 100% of us are Democrats, and then you'll be a statesman. That's the way it works. Whenever you hear bipartisanship in D.C., it means it's time for conservatives to cave. And so Lindsey learned that lesson, and he's back and forth on Trump. I still stand, of course, we can't prove it now. But had the electoral hijinks, which a majority of Americans think now happened in 2020, had we been spared all the machinations of, well, this is just too important to leave to the state legislators, therefore, working in conjunction with secretaries of state, whom George Soros has helped to install, we will set up a new way to vote. And again, I'll just point to a liberal outlet, NBC News, its Agenda 21 project in conjunction with the Arizona State University Walter Cronkite School of Journalism, the Knight Foundation, and other left-leaning groups. In 2012, the investigative report was the best way to commit vote fraud is vote by mail. So all the other eccentric theories about the different vendors of recording the votes, while they may be valid, all I think about is what went on with those ballots from Pennsylvania that end up in the back of a tractor trailer and drove and delivered to a parking lot or someplace in New York State, right there by New York City, yeah. So, and by the way, that guy's testimony has been validated. There was some court hearing the other week. But anyway, here's the deal with Lindsey. Now, Lindsey, I don't think he's going to be able to pull a John McCain. Because when I challenged John McCain, it's one of the ironies, and I laugh about it now because it's just politics. In 2001, remember McCain, the candidate? This money corrupts us all. There must be campaign finance reform. Fast forward to 2010, when circumstances led to my challenge of Senator McCain, who 2 years before had been the Republican standard bearer who lost to Barack Obama in the presidential race. In my mind's eye, I could see this. Hey, fellas, there's a loophole, a campaign finance loophole. You know that taxpayer matched money, that $1 checkoff on your tax return, where there's a presidential fund where about 80 million go to the Democrats and 80 million come to us in the Republican Party, and heretofore we've spent about 60 million. We keep 20 million in to deal with paying off vendors and to fight off lawsuits and the cost of doing business. Well, here's the way campaign law reads. I'm running for another federal office. Now, usually it's a deal where if you're in the House, you want to run for the Senate, you can take the money you've run for the House, declare for the Senate, and move that into your treasury. We can do the same thing with that taxpayer-matched treasure of $20 million sitting in the Republican account. I'm running for federal office. Russ Feingold and I just passed that unconstitutional campaign finance reform. We've given the Federal Elections Commission what they want as bureaucrats. It's the coin of the realm. Money and more employees and a piece of legislation to enforce. They won't touch me. And JD doesn't have enough dough. He's not going to haul me to court. And so this is what McCain was able to spend $30 million against me. We worked hard. Remember, post-2008 panic, still those 2 years, a lot of people trying to dig out. We raised $1 million in 6 weeks, which is pretty good. We raised $3 million for the campaign, but I was outspent 10 to 1. So that's what happened then. But one thing that would happen to John McCain at home in Arizona happened to Lindsey Graham last Saturday in Pickens, South Carolina. And you will hear it right now. Cut 11.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome United States Senator Lindsey Graham.
Now, you hear that? Now, the networks didn't tell you this, but at the county Republican convention, at the state Republican convention, and I'm not here to denigrate the memory of my friend, and he was a friend of mine. It was tough having to do that, but he was wrong about the border and wrong about some other things. But anyway, history kept him there. So, the same thing went on with John McCain in Arizona. Now, Lindsey got a little bit of smart aleck in him because he's been hanging out in Washington. And once you become the senior senator from a state in the world's most exclusive club, the U.S. Senate, well, Lindsey already had this about. You look in the mirror and go, hey, there's a president in there. Remember, Lindsey had a brief campaign for president in 2016. So Lindsey gets up and he starts to get a little smart alecky, trying to mollify all the people disappointed in him in the crowd. In his mind, okay, I'll do the military thing. I'm a veteran. They'll like that. We'll talk about veterans and Medal of Honor recipients in South Carolina, and then I'll tell them, hey, I'm from here, y'all. Take a listen to Cut 12.
Welcome to Pickens County. A little bit about this county. Just calm down for a second. I think you'll like this. Pickens County has more Medal of Honor winners per capita than any place in the nation. I was born in this county. I live 15 miles down the road.
It didn't work. Now, when we come back, Donald John Trump gets up and he sees this as the perfect chance to set Lindsay straight. He waits a few minutes, but he works it into his speech. You will hear that, and we will continue with That Was the Week That Was. JD Hayworth, 10 minutes till 11, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Yes, the preceding a public service announcement for good oral health. This whole exercise and endeavor in great oral help, A-U-R-A-L. Your ears, man, you listening. In just a minute, a radio reunion. A call is coming here, but before I get there, I promised you there was Lindsey getting booed by the home folks. And Donald John Trump actually is following the principle of Abraham Lincoln. Done up in Trumpese, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. And so he keeps an eye on Lindsey because he can always figure out what's going on, and Lindsey is a convenient foil. Now think about it. 2 South Carolinians, Senator Tim Scott and former Governor Nikki Haley, are running for the Republican nomination against Donald Trump. And President Trump keeps old Lindsey the lilac on a short leash. Take a listen to cut 13.
Make mistakes on occasion. Even Lindsey down here, Senator Lindsey Graham. We love Senator Graham. We're gonna love him. We're gonna love him. I know it's half and half, but when I need some of those liberal votes, he's always there to help me get them. Okay? We got some pretty liberal people, but he's good. He's good.
What a perfect way to impugn Lindsey with faint praise. And you better believe Lindsey is looking over his shoulder. All it takes is a rich South Carolinian, and a bunch of them down there in the Palmetto State, a rich conservative who says, you know, Lindsey, we got to take him out. And people listened with interest, but that's a few years off. Right now, speaking of campaigns, it's time for a radio reunion. On line 1 from Franklin, we usually don't do full names, but I will this time. Todd Hull, how on earth are you? Hey, Todd.
Hello, JD.
Hey.
JD, good to hear you.
Thank you. It's good to be heard.
I see you're still stirring up trouble.
Well, yes, sir. I don't go looking for trouble. I just point it out, and sometimes I have to get involved. That's exactly right.
That's right. I just wanted to say hello, really, and tell you that I live in Virginia there, in Northern Virginia, the People's Republic of Fairfax County now, but had to get the hell out of there and move to a conservative state, so I'm down here in Franklin, Tennessee now.
Amen. You're in a good spot. As the late Howard Coble, my old friend from North Carolina, would say, let me tell you something, Todd. Good on ye. Good on ye. I think that's wonderful, man. That is great.
Go
ahead.
I listened to you yesterday talking about Floyd Spence, and I was just rolling laughing. That was great.
I tell you what, that Floyd, he was some kind of public servant, and he had a way with the ladies. Who's that child? Who's that child? Can't be your mama, got to be your daughter. Can't be your wife, got to be your sister. He'd have all those lines going. And then he'd have that, I tell you what, young fella, I'm able to sit up and take nourishment. How about that now? Get that little laugh going. He was a great guy. Wonderful guy.
Yeah, he was a good guy.
And so you are loving Franklin, Tennessee, because suddenly a lot of former members of Congress, not that they're looking to run again, Todd, but well, for example, my buddy, former California Republican Congressman Jim Rogan. In fact, I was on the air here a few months ago, and marvelous Matt Murphy arranged it while I was on. I think in this time slot, Jim called, and I got to catch up with Jim because he was talking about moving to Tennessee right where you are now in Franklin. So everybody wants to come to town.
Oh, he ought to. Franklin's a great town and great people, and it's just a beautiful place to live.
And Todd, you are great for calling in a little radio reunion. Bless you, buddy. Appreciate your help from way back in '94 and beyond. See, there is life out of Congress. Thank you, pal. Good to hear from you. Next hour, mouth off to Music City. Stay tuned.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. Signs the job market remains strong despite higher interest rates and recent layoffs. The economy adding 209,000 jobs in June, fewer than expected, and marking the slowest growth since 2020. ABC's Alexis Christoforous says, though, it may not be enough of a slowdown to ward off another rate hike.
This is just a part of the puzzle. Next week, we get the inflation report. That's out on Wednesday. Depending on what that shows, in combination with this jobs report, will give the Fed guidance for their next meeting, which is at the end of this month. But even so, job creation like this, with an unemployment rate that is still near a 50-year low, it's hard to make the argument that the Federal Reserve is going to stop at this point in its fight against inflation.
Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen in Beijing today, holding talks with business leaders and China government leaders. It comes as rising tensions between both countries over security and trade issues grows. Yellen raising concerns over what she called punitive actions taken against U.S. firms.
The U.S. seeks healthy economic competition with China, but healthy economic competition where both sides benefit is only sustainable if that competition is fair.
The Pentagon could sign off on sending cluster munitions to Ukraine. The controversial enhanced weapons would be used on the front lines as Ukrainian troops try to defend against Russian attacks. ABC's James Longman is in Ukraine.
The U.S. is expected to provide cluster munitions to Ukraine as part of a new military aid package. Cluster munitions break apart mid-air and scatter over a large area. But they're controversial. 120 countries have banned their use, and there is unease among U.S. allies. Rights groups warn of the risk to civilians when the bombs do not initially explode once deployed.
In New Jersey, the deadly cargo ship fire at one of the nation's largest ports still burning, crews working to put it out. You're listening to ABC News.
If you're
Can you believe it? Third and final hour on this Friday. Soon to be 5 minutes past 11. A reminder that following the news at noon, Cameron Smith will be in for the vacationing and pickleball camping Matt Murphy. And then at 3, it will be our friend Pamela Furr in for Bry on the Drive. So right now, you and I, we did a little tip of the cap historically to the franchise That Was the Week That Was by bringing back the sound bites, the audio clips from earlier this week that were the most requested to me. And there was another bit we used, and if necessary, we shall turn to it. But this is your chance to take advantage of the world's first interactive electronic medium. Because think about it. Until radio broadcasting came into vogue now over a century ago, and somewhere along the line, somebody got the bright idea, hey, we can configure our audio arrangement so we can have the telephone lines incorporated in so we can hear from people who listen, who want to call in. And talk radio was born. And when you think about that, it is our first interactive electronic media. It is the first electronic medium we should use. Let's get our Latin plurals correct. So here is your opportunity. And if you're sitting there going, well, if I just want to see what JD does if people don't call. Look, we try these things out. We have the courage to offer innovation. If you don't want to be part of this, that's cool. Believe me, I ran for the United States Senate. I could hold my own in a filibuster, all right? So just understand that. But here is your opportunity. Here is the rationale behind it. Traditionally in this format of talk radio, open phones come on Fridays. This is going to be open phones at warp speed. When you call in, and you know the number, but I'll repeat it for you, 615-737-9986. When you call that number, also known as 615-737-WWTN, Millennial Magnificent Mac will answer the phone. See, I'm getting old, Mac. I get the wrong ending to the M sounding name. Millennial Mac, our producer, is standing by to answer your call. That's right. Hey, it's The Price is Right. And it's our celebrity showcase where we get to recount just exactly which spokesmodel gave Bob Barker an offer he couldn't refuse. You can research that, Matt. I don't know if you're aware of that story. We may tell that one after a while. And how do we put it delicately for this family audience? Well, that'll be one of our challenges. Here's the deal. All you need to do to be showcased, to use that wonderful music behind us, to be showcased, you call that number. Magnificent Mac will line you up on the call board. When I bring you on, let's say, for example, your name is Mildred, and you're listening up a little bit away, up in Tullahoma. I'll say, why, from Tullahoma, it's Mildred. Or to tell you the truth, Matt may not have the time to type in the geographic location because we expect the calls to come in rapidly, fast and furiously. And then we will put you on the air, Mildred from Tullahoma, as our example. And you'll have exactly 30 seconds. And at the end of those 30 seconds, we disconnect and move on. So come up with what it is you want to say. Of course, if you want to talk about one of my favorite subjects, me, that's cool. My stewardship of this time slot this week, fine. I realize that's risky. You may not like the show when I'm on. You may have other preferences. You may just want to have the delight to go, hey, man, JD, USUX, man. You know, something like that. But you can do it as long as you don't really talk dirty. Then we cut the call anyway. So, again, Mac is waiting expectantly for your call, 615-737-9986. Now, if this thing gets going, we'll have to pause a little bit because usually the phone lines, and we have a bunch of them, but it takes a while, and plus Mac has to set up the calls. And Mac, do you feel up to this? Because you're going to have to set up calls, but also have the timer going on each call. Are you going to be able to handle that? I can tell you're getting ready to answer a call right there. Oh, this is beautiful. What are the chances? I'm looking at the call board. And so, Mac, are the calls, at least a couple are coming in. Now, my question to you, Mac, it's where you've got to, you not only are setting up these calls, but you've got to keep an eye on the clock and
I've got it, man.
Time them exactly to 30 seconds.
Yes, sir.
And wouldn't you know, what are the chances on line one? I'm thinking this may be an assumed name. It's Mildred from Tullahoma. Mildred, welcome to the program. Your 30 seconds begin now. You're on. Go, Mildred.
Hey, good morning. Good afternoon. I just wanted to say I love when you're on the air, and I miss Phil Valentine very much. And I am praying for the United States, and I'm calling to put over the airwaves for others that believe to pray for this country also. And everybody have a great weekend.
Amen. And Mildred, what a deep voice you have. Thanks very much for the call. So this is the way it goes. And he got that done in 30 seconds. Or Mildred, whatever the gender, with a deep voice. It's like I mentioned the football coach, the guy who was at Elon and Duke, Shirley S. Red Wilson. Well, there was another famous Shirley who happened to be a man in sports writing. Maury Povich's dad, Shirley Povich, was a sports writer for the Washington Post. But I digress. On line two, awaiting his 30 seconds, it is Bill. So, Bill, it has come due. As soon as we click on the phone, your 30 seconds will begin. And, Bill, we welcome you. Your 30 seconds starts right now. Go, Bill.
Diana Parkinson.
Yes, that is the spirit of the program, Bill. Thank you for your call. See, it can be a one-liner. It can be whatever, you don't have to use a whole 30 seconds. So if you've got a point to make about a local aspirant for government service, about your favorite performer, about your kid's teacher, about one of your favorite old preachers. I mean, it's open to anything. It's an open phone segment, but it is at warp speed. But it's provided you call and get the hang of it here. And so calls are coming in. Again, if you're just happening upon this, the number to call, 615-737-9986. 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. Now, just one note for the preceding caller, or the caller, the Mildred who kicked this off. I got to tell you, we all miss Phil Valentine. He was a friend of mine, and a native North Carolinian. And, of course, Phil's daddy was a conservative Democrat back when there were actually conservative Democrats. I know they exist. And so the phones are lining up here, and I am going to get to it in a mere moment. Mac, you cool? You want me to go ahead with the phones now, or are you typing some names in here? Tell you what, I'll let you type in the last name, and we'll keep this cavalcade of calls going as soon as you get the last name typed in here on the one that's right there. And we'll get in line, and you will get the real pacing of what this program should be. So we will take them in sequence. We begin fittingly on line 1. We welcome James to the program. James, your 30 seconds start now.
Okay, there's a Shirley Majors who was a longtime head coach at the University of the South at Sewanee, and whose son...
Okay, here, let me get this kicked back in. I know you're mentioning a Shirley who was a head coach.
Yes, and his son is Johnny Majors, who was a national champion at the University at Pitt.
That's
and
right.
Also a championship coach elsewhere.
Amen.
So there are
Shirley
many
connection.
Shirleys.
Indeed, surely you are correct, James. We thank you for the call, and thereby we say goodbye to you because 30 seconds have gone by. On line 2 now, it's Charlie. Charlie, we welcome you. Your 30 seconds start right now.
Hey, you've had two great personalities at WTN for many years, Phil Valentine and Robert D. Rayford. I'm sure you remember them both. And listening to you, after Robert left, they never replaced him. You would be a great replacement for Robert D. Rayford.
Charlie, we thank you for the call, and we appreciate it. Your 30 seconds, now they're up, but I could just have you go on for hours, but that's not the format. Thank you for the very kind remarks. Now, I know we've rung on to line 3, have we not, or we just finished line 3? I guess we finished with line 3. That means we go to line 4. Oh, with reference to ever replacing someone, I follow what Thomas Jefferson's advice was when he went to present his credentials to the French court. He went to see the king, and the king said, I see you are here to replace Mr. Franklin. And Thomas Jefferson said, oh, no, your majesty. I'm just here to succeed Dr. Franklin. No one could ever replace him. And I think that's the right kind of spirit, but I appreciate the compliment. And now, on line 4, we welcome Dean. Dean, it's your chance to mouth off to Music City. Your 30 seconds begin now. Go, Dean.
Oh, hello, Mr. JD Hayworth. It's great to hear your voice. I used to watch you in Phoenix, Arizona on the news. It's great to have you up here and be able to hear you in the Nashville area. I'm down in the Lawrenceburg area. Great to have you here.
Wonderful, Dean. Thank you for the call and the shout out of all those days on Channel 10 Phoenix. Only as high as I could count. Bless you, buddy. Hey, some lines are opening up here. Your chance to get in. 615-737-9986. 615-737-WWTN. On line 5, looky here. It's Tom. Tom, we welcome you to the broadcast, and your half a minute starts now.
Yes, the Republicans keep complaining about the Democrats spending all this money, but they have only themselves to blame. The 11 senators that voted for that big spending package, that's what has enabled that large amount of spending. And I've told the senatorial committee, I'm not giving you any more money until you can get your group together.
All right, Tom, we thank you. You got that delivered within 30 seconds. On line 6, it's Randy. Randy, we thank you for taking time. Now make the most of this time. Your half a minute starts right now. Hello, Randy.
Yes, I have an observation and a question.
Go ahead.
I've noticed that the post office vehicles don't have any license plates on them anymore.
after 2020. What do you think about that?
I'll have an answer for you a bit later. And in fact, this is a good time to point this out. When you ask me a question in this segment, I treat it as rhetorical, but Randy brought up the post office. If time allows it, a little later this hour, I will get more both into his question and what the heck's going on with the United Postal Service. We've got a call online, a good chance for you to jump in, 615-737-9986. It's Mouth Off Music City. More of your calls coming up. We're stepping aside right now, 11:20 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. $11:24. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, final hour of this midday thing. And, of course, following the news at noon, Cameron Smith in for Matt Murphy, pickleball camping Matt Murphy. He and Dan Praying Mandis are going to have a pickleball showdown for supremacy here at the old Radio Ranch. I am loving this time with you, and I wonder, well, I don't want to get ahead of myself, Mac, but I wonder if that midday thing could be a possible name in programming. Better not, start measuring the drapes. I've been in this business a long time, and sometimes it shows. And here's what we're doing right now. This hour, an experiment in radio. It is open phones at warp speed if you're hip to Star Trek. The reason why it's Friday, the reason why, well, in the parlance of this particular format, Fridays usually are open phones. But the way we do it, we want you to use your passion, your inventiveness, heck, even your sense of humor or your great sense of invective to call us, and you will be given 30 seconds, a half a minute. And during that limited time, listen, it's only 30 seconds. If you don't finish, boom, we have to cut you off. So be ready to make this happen. And a couple of callers are in line, but your chance to get in is here. I know that you may be out and about taking care of things on Friday, and so you join us for a time and have to leave. But if you're pulled over, or if you're driving and you want to call, pull over, 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. And we begin this particular segment in White House, Tennessee. On line one, it's Jay. Oh, Jay, your half a minute starts right now.
Hello there. I think that the problem in our country right now is that we've got 25 or 30 years of liberal indoctrination that has worked. So we've got ill-informed young people who are now registered to vote. So if conservatives really want to make a difference and make a change, I've got two suggestions. Number one, learn the issues and stay in touch with your representatives, both state and federal. And number two, run for school board to try to straighten out the next generation, or at least work with the young people in your area.
Perfect. Pretty close to perfect. I think we may have, but you conveyed the message, and we appreciate it. Now, on line two, giving the location as Egypt, line two, it's George. George, your half a minute starts right now.
Well, George, I'm from South Egypt, so I speak slowly. I'll try. Love it when you fill in. The whole blow case at the White House may be blamed on Kamala or somebody else, but we all know where it goes. And secondly, on the whole Biden indoctrinate or the whole Biden scandal thing, nothing is going to happen to those people, sadly. And the top of the FBI, CIA, NSA.
Well, you see the 30 seconds left. That's the lesson to George checking in from South Egypt, as he said. Now, checking in from Eagleville, Tennessee, on line one, it's Craig. Oh, Craig, your half a minute starts right now.
Hey, y'all, Craig Campbell here. Just want to invite everybody out to Eagleville, Tennessee tonight and join me at my coffee shop, Grindstone Cowboy, for First Friday night. It's going to be a great night. We'd love to see y'all there.
Okay. Now, this brings us to, as we go on, it's like the Founding Fathers. We have to think of different circumstances. Appreciate the call, brother, and I wasn't specific about this, but if you are calling to endorse a commercial spot, in other words, you're saying, hey, come to my place, we have something for that. It's called advertising. You buy advertising.
I will veto them.
And the same thing is true when you say, hey, JD, the Royal Order of the Raccoon's going to have a fish fry out here tonight. It's for a good cause. Yeah, we know it is. And maybe one day we'll have a community bulletin board where we can talk about the fish fry that the Royal Order of the Raccoons is going to have. But on this segment, we want you, A, not to call to endorse your products or your establishment. B, even as worthwhile as civic clubs are, We don't need to hear about the fish fry or what else is going on. We want to hear your issues, your take on personalities, your frustrations, your salutations, especially for the guy behind the mic. At any rate, that is the essence of Mouth Off to Music City, and this experiment in radio will continue in mere moments. It's 11:30. It's the recovering Congressman JD Hayworth here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We are fast approaching. I'm trying to get this thought up here. Time at the tone, 11:34. Wait for it. Beep. Which means we're 26 minutes in front of noon. That mathematical thing still gets to me, but I know this. As a recovering congressman, we're in our final few minutes of this third and final hour. We are involved in an experiment in radio. I call it Mouth Off to Music City. Sure, when I join you, as I do on occasions, as I will again next Monday and next Thursday from 9 until noon, I often say that it's my honor to provide the lyrics of life for Music City, USA, and all of Middle Tennessee, and for the thousands, nay, the millions, who may tune in via streaming audio at 99.7, that's right, 99.7WTN.com. But right now, you are collaborating on the lyrics because Mouth Off to Music City gives you 30 seconds where you can say what's on your mind. Now, a couple of things we're not interested in. 3 things, actually. Don't call up here and cuss. You won't do that, you can go somewhere else. Number 2, if you have a hankering to do a commercial announcement, then call our sales staff. That's what it's for there. That's why we have sponsors. So if you want to call and say, hey, come to Harvey's Heifer Burger, I got a special. We got chicken guts for 99 cents. No, that doesn't work. And the third thing is we are big boosters of civic clubs and charitable opportunities. But don't call me saying, JD, the Royal Order of Raccoon's going to have a fish fry tonight out here in Gallatin. It may be noble, it may be community-oriented, the dough may go for a good cause, but we'll set up some sort of community bulletin board for those worthy endeavors. No, right now what we want you to do is to say what's on your mind. Controversial, outrageous, commonplace, laudatory, in criticism, whatever it is. Your First Amendment rights fit in to 30 seconds. And so with that, we return to the phones. Why, ironically, on line 1 from Gallatin, it is Leland. Leland, we welcome you to the broadcast. Let's punch up Leland on line 1. Can we get Leland punched up? Do we have him punched up? It doesn't. There we go. Leland, your half a minute begins right now.
I plan to vote for President Donald John Trump if God blesses me to get to the polls in November of 2024, the greatest president since President Ronald Reagan. I yield the balance of my time.
Hey, you've been watching C-SPAN. You're making me feel right at home. Leland, I would point out that the House is not a home, but it was a great 12 years. That's my editorial comment. Line 2 from Murfreesboro, we welcome Dave. Oh, Dave, your half minute starts right now. Go, Dave. Dave, time's a-wasting.
Dave's done.
Okay, see ya. That's kind of like Curtis Mayfield after he left the Impressions. Do-do-do, 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 do-do-do. Fred is dead. And he said, Dave is done. Okay, cool. To Donaldson, on line 3, Robert is on the line. Robert, your half minute starts right now.
Yes, thank you for listening. I'd just like to tell everybody that listens to this program, which I do every day, is not just listen to it, but tell everybody you meet, everybody that don't know about 99.7, and just tell them if they want to hear the real truth and things that they haven't heard before, that's the station to listen to. Tell everybody, not just the people that actually listen. Tell everybody else. That's it.
All right, Robert, and we thank you for the call. And Robert may have a future in what we call broadcast promotion. There's a whole promotion department to do that, but we're happy to have his help. Line 4 from Old Hickory. Johnny is on the phone. Johnny, your half minute starts right now.
JD, it is so nice to hear from you. I hope that you get a slot on this radio station. You make it feel like you're at home right now. I want you and Pamela Furr to have your own slots there. But I tell you what, I know it's getting close to the noon hour, and I'm not trying to plug anything, but I'd like to meet you at a really nice restaurant. It's called Pizza Perfect.
It's going a little, I guess the time was, I had a little problem hearing toward the end, but I sure enjoyed that first part of what Johnny had to say. We're going back to the top of the board. Remember, it's only a half minute. You got to work it in. And poised to mouth off to Music City, USA on line 1, it is Marie. Hello, Marie, and your 30 seconds start right now.
Hi, enjoy your show. And I'm going to vote for Donald Trump, President Trump, greatest president, and I have the utmost respect for him, the love of his family, the empathy, the world peace that he is so good negotiating with, and he is truly the person we need to lead this country again and get it going in the right direction. And that's all I have to say.
And that's quite a bit, and we thank you. You fit that into 30 seconds. And based on just the past few calls, we are hearing that, at least based on a pair of callers, we're hearing that Tennessee remains Trump country. Now, you may have another opinion. If you do, that's cool. We want to hear from you. This is free speech. Your First Amendment rights, yes, with rights come responsibilities. We don't need a reenactment of Orson Welles' War with the World, War of the Worlds that caused such problems in the 1930s. We don't need that. No hoaxes, no libelous stuff, but just you got something on your mind, we allow you to get that for us. And we are going to pick up the calls now. Let me take a look here. On line 1, it is Bob checking in from Delma, NC. Bob, welcome to the broadcast. Your half minute starts right now.
Hi, this is Bob, and I'm just calling from Selma to appreciate what JD does for the radio station, and wanted to give a shout out to everybody in Mount Juliet, and would like to see more effort being done to square these issues with Facebook.
Good job, Bob, and checking in. Let's see if it's Selma, North Carolina, not Delma, Selma, which is Smithfield, Selma, I think, down there. They must be listening, streaming audio. Little closer, probably listening to us the natural way, over the air. On line 2 from Hermitage, Connie is on the phone. Connie, your 30 seconds begin right now.
JD?
Yes.
Hey, this is Connie. Are you single?
No, ma'am. I've got a pretty bride, and we've been married now for 34 years, and she, probably against her better judgment, still hangs with me. But thank you for asking. I don't know if we were about to have a proposal over the air. You got a couple of seconds left. Anything else?
Well, I'm a Trump supporter, too. Do you have a brother or any friends that are like you?
Yeah, my little brother, one of the champion dog trainers in North Carolina. His name is Philip, with 2 L's. So keep that in mind. Philip Hayworth.
Okay. Well, it was nice speaking with you.
Thank you, Connie. I appreciate the effort to, we kind of combined Mouth Off to Music City with a radio version of The Dating Game. Or what was that other thing our buddy from the first host of Wheel of Fortune, Chuck Woolery, used to host? Love Connection. Yeah, I appreciate the questions about marital status, but don't get me in trouble with Miss Mary. Dynamite comes in small packages. All right, let's see. We've got somebody checking in on line 1. Mac is doing a good job getting this all done. And on line 1 from Murfreesboro, it's Billy. We greet him with the musical question, which way you going, Billy? And your 30 seconds begin now, Billy.
We've been invaded by wokeism, and there's more of us than there are of them, but we're letting them take over our country. First it was education, now it's corporate America. Where does it stop?
Well, it stops with this show, by cracky, because we have you on telling us the truth, and we thank you, Billy. So you see the way we get things done here. Mouth off to Music City. We celebrate the First Amendment. No, we don't shout fire in a crowded theater. No, we don't allow you to do free spots. It's interesting about American broadcasting. My distant cousin, Herbert Hoover, as Secretary of Commerce during the administration of Calvin Coolidge, the reason why it's very unique the way American broadcasting was set up. You can be in business, thus commercials, but you have to operate in the public interest as a public trustee. And so that's what we got going on here. Yes, we have sponsors. Yes, we hope you patronize the sponsors. And yes, we are incredibly happy to have you line up with calls and with your observations where you get 30 seconds of time. And in fact, we are back to the phones because checking in on line 1, using a telephone out of Tullahoma, it is Wigsy. Is that correct? Wigsy, your half minute starts right now.
Yeah, this is Steve Wiggs. I just want to say, let's go, Brandon. That's it.
Short, sweet, hard to beat. Thanks, Wigsy. Appreciate the phone call. Now to line 2 and Bert. Bert, your half minute starts right now. Hey, Bert, time's a-wasting. Well, going once, going twice. Go ahead, man.
I'll talk about discipline. I'm 75 years old, and I paddled every one of my 5 kids. I taught school 17 years, 40 years ago, paddled a student. Discipline and the parents is a problem with America. My wife retired from teaching 23 years first grade. She retired because the government thought they knew how to tell people how to teach, and that's it.
That's a good job, Bert. Sorry we had a little difficulty there at first, but you brought the message through loud and clear, and we are grateful to you. On line 3 from Kingston Springs, it's a man who shares the first name of one of our pickleballers who does the morning show here. It's Dan on line 3. Dan, your 30 seconds begin right now.
I think our country should be forever thankful to have a man like Donald Trump running for president, because he is one of the few individuals that could withstand all of the flack that the corrupt administration has thrown at him.
All right, Dan, you got that in 30 seconds. We thank you very, very much for the call. And on line 1 in Ashton City, it is Roger. Roger, you're getting 30 seconds before we say over and out to you, and your half minute starts right now. Go, Roger.
I don't think they ought to tear down the soccer stadium, and use it for parking for the Nashville racetrack.
All righty. Appreciate that call. Yeah, you know, that whole thing about soccer, our kids didn't play it. We might should have had them play, because that'd help them sleep, running around when they're little. But the thing that got me about soccer, and I just want to make this observation, because Roger prompted the call. I don't know if you have the same thing with with youth soccer there in Middle Tennessee, but out in the desert, you'd think, now, for baseball we have Little League. The youth soccer leagues, when I was in Congress, I was out one Saturday morning, and I see one kid coming in with his soccer shirt, Italia, and another kid wearing a soccer shirt, España. And I'm going, now, wait a minute, this is the US of A. We get that whole global thing, but why aren't these soccer teams named, Wildcats, Polecats? The greatest name, since my bride grew up in Yuma, Arizona, Territorial Prison down there. The name of the mascot at Yuma High School in Arizona The criminals. I kid you not.
Wow.
Or crims for short. You see the things you learn here and the marvelous topics that are prompted by your 30 seconds, even when you don't use them, like tear down that soccer stadium, use it for parking for the racetrack. Well, that's a valid point of view, and your point of view, Mac has been working. He even had time right there to express a one-word opinion of wow. We're going to keep wowing them, Mac. More of your calls as we head down the home stretch, 615-737-9986. It's Mouth Off to Music City. Our exercise of free speech continues. It is 10 minutes till noon. Time at the tone, 11:53. Beep. That's right, 7 minutes till noon. Heading down the home stretch, Mouth Off to Music City. Your 30 seconds to give us your aspirations, your frustrations, just your pronouncements. No, not fish fry announcements. On line one, it's April. April, we welcome you to the broadcast. And April, let's see, there, April, your half minute starts right now.
I just want to say to Janet Scott, she butchered our national anthem, and I just think it's rotten of her to bring racist. I feel like she's the one that's racist, and I'm just so sick of hearing all that, and I wish it would just stop.
All right, and thank you. And that's kind of cool. Somebody was calling in on the other line. Line 2, Shelbyville for David. David, your half minute begins now.
Yes, I'd like to say to that last caller about turning the soccer field into a parking lot. He doesn't understand, evidently, that the Frisk family bought that soccer team to Nashville, and they have the power probably to turn the racetrack into a parking lot for the soccer stadium.
Interesting take. Thank you very much, David. Appreciate the call. On line 4 from Hendersonville, Star is standing by. It is said that everybody is a star, but right now we have Hendersonville Star, and Star, your 30 seconds begin now.
Hi, I'd like to say that identity development is a huge issue in our society. Children up through young adults are particularly susceptible to confused thinking and coercion into communities that encourage them to find their identity rooted in illusion rather than reality. I would say this: trust your body to tell you your sex. The expression of who you are as a man or woman is broad and doesn't have to be limited by social constructs, but be whoever you want to be, but do it as the man or woman that you were born to be. And look deeper than your sex and gender to discover yourself. For example, my identity is eternally rooted in Jesus Christ, which transcends shifting culture and trends. And
there we have it. And again, the 30 seconds are up, but Star, it sounds like you're going to have eternity. Amen. Thanks for your call. And this is the way we do it. It's a new thing. A couple of you have reached me closed circuit saying, man, this kind of sounds weird. Well, it takes a while. And you have to be brave with the experiment, but I think it's the ultimate way to celebrate the First Amendment and to encapsulate the whole open phones thing and to allow the most important element of any program on the air, the listeners, to have pretty much unfettered access, albeit for a brief period of time. Mac, looks like we got one more. Maybe this will be the icing on the cake. Well, it looks like it
dropped off.
Oh, okay. Well, lucky for us, I still have one of the bits from That Was the Week That Was, and I'll go ahead and fess up. This is a little different. I did not use this audio portion when I raised the topic. And I thought it was kind of, I was a little worried. I thought, is this a little bit too much? But it kind of dovetails off of Star's announcement or her observation about trust who you are based on the equipment the good Lord gave you. And so I remember the 1970s when the draft was eliminated and we had an all-volunteer army, and we started seeing recruiting commercials that had this jingle, Cut 14. Great jingle, great jingle. Now, here's the way I had to change it, because this week the Army put out a tweet celebrating the journey of trans Major Rachel Jones, claiming she went from depression to authenticity. And see, maybe I'm simple-minded, but I figure our military exists to protect America. I don't know what's gotten into this bunch at the Pentagon. Well, maybe they're appointed by Biden. That explains a lot. But the military does not exist to create a, quote, diverse workforce. It exists to protect America. And so the point I made earlier this week that you wanted to hear again was the notion that if we're really going to go down this road, if we've decided that that our fighting men and women should pledge allegiance to a rainbow flag instead of the red, white, and blue and transition, well, here's your new jingle for the Army. Change the way you pee. You can do it in the Army. Kind of a musical note. Controversial, perhaps. Now, I'm expecting to be back with you Monday following the news at 9 on many of this same station. It has been a great week, or 4 days of the 5-day work week with the 4th of July. Stay brave, stay free, stay tuned. JD Hayworth saying thanks for listening. See you Monday.